Usha Vance, J.D. Vance's Indian-American wife of 10 years, is turning heads. If you've read or seen his memoir, turned Netflix flick, Hillbilly Elegy, she's been his anchor and driving force that's propelled the Ohio senator from their early days as law students at Yale University. Now, fast forward to Wednesday night.
So who is Usha Vance? Well, she is the daughter of Indian immigrants, grew up in San Diego area practicing Hinduism. She was a registered Democrat who attended Yale Law School, then met her husband there, went on to clerk for Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. That bio is a far cry from the last Republican Second Lady Karen Pence, a white grandmother and devout Christian. Per public records, Usha voted in Democratic primaries as recently as 2014, but she switched sides, voting for her husband in the 2022 primary when he was running for the Ohio Senate seat. Now, while some Republicans seem keen on embracing Usha's non-white background as potential generational change, others in the party's base might need some convincing. Here are some reactions on X. Now, Star Trek's George Takei trolled the party. These are not reactions from Republicans. Star Trek's George Takei trolled the party, posting, quote, "MAGA fans have racist meltdown after discovering J.D. Vance's wife isn't white." Far-right activist and the founder of America First students, Jaden McNeil, posted a picture of the Vances and their then newborn child, captioning, quote, "I'm sure this guy is going to be great on immigration." And then white nationalist leader Nick Fuentes said this on Right Wing Watch. Let's watch.
J.D. Vance also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names. So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist or something. But it's like, who is this guy really? Do we really expect that the guy who has an Indian wife and named their kid Vivek is going to support white identity?
I don't think Nick Fuentes speaks for anyone, and I am against giving him any attention whatsoever. And I don't think any significant number of people in the Republican Party or in the GOP care at all that she is Indian or that she is Hindu. And that guy is totally marginal. He's kicked out of every student conference he tries to attend. And so I expect her to be warmly embraced.
Really?
Yes.
But doesn't Nick have a lot of followers that are Republican?
No.
He doesn't?
And he's a gadfly. He is not a popular figure. He's not welcome in any circles. He's maybe people on the left might be wrongly identifying him as a pivotal figure, or might have some strange newfound respect for him because he's deeply anti-Semitic and thus anti-Israel, and thus is sympathetic to Hamas, and has had some strange new respect for him from people on the left as a result of October 7th. But he is not someone of any note on the right.
I'm looking up his podcast listeners. Okay, I think that because I saw the reaction and I wasn't there in person at the convention, the camera panned to his wife Usha several times throughout him speaking, and when he said we have to fight for the people who built this country, she kind of winced. And I don't know what that was about. And I'm very curious if it's because she came from a middle-class background and there's some weird tension between the middle class and the working class. There is in the country. I don't know if it's permeated their relationship. But I did see her wince, and people said her speech that she came out and sort of changed her energy to be a little bit sheepish. And there were people with signs at the convention that said mass deportation now. And as a first-generation immigrant, when you're going through the migration process, it is unknown whether or not you're going to get full citizenship. And maybe she felt a certain type of way about that being the case, that they were all holding those signs in the crowd she was speaking to. We know that she worked at a law firm that identified as a progressive law firm. And so I'm not sure if she shares the political views of her husband, but she must love him very much, or love Mama and being in proximity to Mama, who's a very popular figure. But it seems to be an interesting thing that she's going through, and I hope she has support for whatever that is.
I mean, the mass deportation policy, which to be clear, I don't agree with, but the idea is not to deport all immigrants or all non-white people. What Republicans want to do, what Donald Trump wants to do, what people who talk about this issue want to do on the right is deport the illegal immigrants, the people who enter the country illegally, not just like all non-white people or something. So there's no actual hypocrisy or violation of the policy. Like, oh, how could he have an immigrant wife? The party is fine with legal immigrants, or at least most people in the party are. There are some people who want to make, on the right, who want to bring down immigration levels even further and want to make it harder to come into the country and become a citizen. But no one, literally no one, absolutely no one is advocating deporting legal immigrants, Indian immigrants, or anyone else. So it's not like, I don't think it's a gotcha. You can be perfectly welcoming of people who came in under the legal system. And again, I don't think mass deportations for legal immigrants is a good policy because it would cost tons of money. It would require creating like a vast police state. I think we should have more border security, and we should actually make it easier for people to come here legally so that we have fewer people swarming over the southern border and creating the chaos that we see in our border towns. Make it possible for people to come here, work, contribute to the economy, pay taxes, etc. That's what I'm for. That's what many Republicans are for, although there are disagreements over what levels of immigration will be acceptable for maintaining the cultural identity of the country and for maintaining stability in various places. And so that's the argument being held. But no one is just for deporting legal immigrants.
I think as a recent immigrant, right, she's first generation, you're very close to how difficult it is to migrate to another country. I was just on a call yesterday with the Young Center for Children's Immigrants' Rights. And a lot of children have been exploited by big corporations. They're in companies. They are working for companies, being recruited to them while they're in countries that are destabilized, in part due to U.S. intervention, countries like Guatemala, and they're in uncertain conditions. And some of them are recruited from that country to come to the United States to work illegally. And these are children that are forced to be child laborers in the United States. There's a class action lawsuit right now against many chicken manufacturers across the country for precisely this. Understanding that, what happens if those children are deported back to their countries after working for an American corporation? There's all kinds of things that I think are just nuanced situations that if you're a first-generation immigrant, you know this because you know other people who are immigrants, and you have a more compassion to understand that a policy of mass deportation would probably negatively affect a lot of people that are struggling. And so I think there needs to be just more nuanced policy. And I think having J.D. Vance in office, maybe it's good that she's his wife and will have his ear and will be able to explain things like that. But I think coming into a party that's honestly hostile towards immigrants has got to be very difficult as someone who could be the first VP.
I mean, I think it should complicate
or the VP's first lady.
People's attitude or expectation of J.D. Vance. I mean, the way J.D. Vance is being explained on MSNBC and CNN and other places is as this extremist, quasi-white nationalist figure. They basically used that wording to describe him. I think Alex Wagner of MSNBC, I just saw that she called. She said the fact that he has a family cemetery plot where his ancestors are born is like a white nationalist signaling kind of thing, which is just utterly crazy. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, she said that J.D. Vance wanting to be buried in his family plot is an Easter egg of white nationalism. This is crazy kind of stuff. That is crazy. He has an Indian wife. His kids have Indian names. He cooks Indian food. He is not a white nationalist. He thinks that now he has a different set of economic policies and immigration policies than I have, and that the Republican Party has traditionally had. I'm going to advocate against these ideas when he proposes policies I think are bad, but everything just gets rounded up to white nationalism in the kind of liberal progressive framing.
I think about it more in the context of the intersection of race and migration and class. Because here you have someone who's a first-generation immigrant where if we had the restrictive policies that the right is pushing, her family would not have been able to come. And let's also not assume she's progressive. India is also a country with a severe caste system and severe racial differences. You have people who appreciate proximity to whiteness, who bleach their skin in India. So racism's alive and well in India, and just because she's from India, we can't assume her thoughts on race either. But J.D. Vance is someone who, in his book, criticized people for being on welfare. time and again. He seems to resent the working class while being a part of it and supposedly being a working class hero. This is someone who said he was raised on Social Security, but he's working for a party that wants to cut the social safety net that got him where he is today, that got him to Yale Law School where he met his wife. And so to me, it's that kind of dishonesty of the intersection of all of it, of being a migrant and wanting to take away all of the policies that got them where they are today. So it seems like he's completely sold out, and I don't want to push, his views onto her at all, but it all seems a bit disingenuous, knowing his background, knowing his wife's background.
We'll be back with more Rising right after this.